Yeah, YouTube is ready.
Welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
Hey, so we're going to talk about the third episode of Loki, which is, I think, entitled Dementis. Is
Yes.
Yeah,
It's the planet's name,
this is the
the
planet's
place
name.
that they were at. Yeah.
It actually shows up in Marvel Comics, so it wasn't created for the show. I think, for what I recall, has to do with like the Nova Corps or something like that.
Hmm.
So we are going to, as we usually do, talk about the show in a spoiler-free fashion, what we thought about the show, and then we're going to get into spoiler talk. So, Colin, what did you think of the episode this week?
I think that they really just kind of narrowed the scope of the whole episode and made it just a kind of a. It was very interesting in terms of they're playing along with the kind of like the interaction between two people, and so this time it's enough. It's not the same person that we're used to before, but it's a different person to have that type of interaction with, and I think that it just kind of speaks to, I would say, the amount of talent that Tom Hiddleston has had with all these different characters that he's interacting with in a way where like it's very compelling and it's very visceral at times too. So I really enjoyed just this kind of like romp as well. This kind of adventure that he's with this other person. But we'll get into kind of like who that is in the spoiler part. But definitely, I enjoyed the episode. Just kind of again, like I said last week, it was kind of edge of my seat in some ways, kind of like what's going to happen next and such. So it's just kind of kept me kind of guessing and kept me interested throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, so they, like you said, they definitely, like you alluded to, they definitely slowed down the episode or slowed down things, given where things ended last episode, because it seemed like, I mean, I guess it's spoilers for the last episode, but if you're watching this, you probably should have seen the last episode. At the end of the last episode, they we saw that the Lady Loki sent things to multiple timelines. So it seems like things are going to at the beginning of this episode, things are going to pick up from there. But we go in a different direction, and it's a different direction for a good reason, I think. And like you said, Tom Hiddleston is just a really great actor, and who he's bouncing off is also really, really good as well. So I think it's a good episode to get a little bit more backstory for Loki and also this other person also, which you can probably guess given how the end of the last episode ended. But I don't want to necessarily give it away until we start talking about spoiler stuff. But I definitely think it was a good episode. It was definitely slower than the first two episodes, even though there was some action. There was actually a couple fights in this, and there weren't many fights in the first two episodes. It's just that they had fights, and then they had long portions of like dialogue and trying to and
Hmm.
actually and like character pieces where you're trying to actually understand the characters.
Hmm.
So that's why it seems slower, even though not only did they have more action, but there was a continuous shot of action at one point, which was really exciting. And there was nothing like that in the other two episodes. But I think just because there was more talking in this one, and there was less world building sort of stuff, it's more like character building stuff.
Hmm.
It seemed a little bit slower. It was
Hmm.
definitely still a good episode though. Yeah. All right,
Hmm.
so we're gonna move on to our spoiler talk. So go see the episode if you haven't seen the episode. But
Hmm.
after this point, we're gonna spoil the episode. So where do you want to start? At the end, the beginning, middle? What do you want to talk about?
I think I really want to get at the dialogue between Lady Loki, who we know now as Sylvie,
Right.
And then Loki himself. So I just found it to be very, like I said in the non-spoiler part, very interesting how Tom Hiddleston's able to kind of play off. First, we thought it was amazing that he was able to kind of play off with Owen Wilson, and he was able to kind of see the depth of the character. But now it's like you're now he's doing it with another character, and so it's very rare for one actor to kind of have that type of amazing interaction with both characters, and it's just and the dialogue that they have back and forth about them understanding each other. Their kind of own biographies about how they came about in this world was just really well done throughout. The writing was well done, and just the delivery of it was well done. And also, it always get back. Well, there was part where she was literally just screaming and just like had this um like frustrated type of fit because of what's happened, and also because their quote unquote machine was broken, their device was broken, so that's why they were stuck in this apocalyptic world that they were in, and just kind of like how they would be able to kind of get out of it, and just the amount of distrust or kind of like a level of there's also a level of respect, even though there's a level of mistrust and dislike this between the two characters. It's almost like they have this like kind of very tension-filled love-hate relationship, which I found really, really interesting and compelling. Something that really hasn't been done, I would say. I mean, the last thing that I kind of remember that was kind of like that was with Han Solo and Princess Leia, but that was years ago. And there's no like kind of, I don't think that there's kind of a love tension there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is going to be something later on, but there is that type of kind of push and pull that's going on that I found fascinating.
I don't think that there's like you said, I don't think there's a love thing going on, but almost like a sibling rivalry, I guess, between the two of them. So that was interesting to see. And I think I was looking it up while you were talking. I think I said Dementis was the name of the episode. It's Lamentis, like to lament something.
Ah.
So yeah. So Tom Hiddleston bouncing off of Sophie Di Martino was just as compelling as him bouncing off of Owen Wilson. And it was really cool to hear about their backstories and how they differed. I've seen a little bit of, I think Marvel posted a clip this week, just today, of next week, and you see her as a little girl being pulled into the TVA. So I don't know if her mere existence was a variation, and she mentions that they've been chasing her entire life in this episode. So the fact that she came out a girl instead of a boy was a variation. I don't know, but she was a little girl. She looks like a little girl being pulled into the TVA in the clip from next week. So it's interesting how their paths diverged even more than the other variant Lokis, because you see from the previous episode you saw variant Lokis that are just like hulking, that when in the Tour de France, the variant Lokis who decided to be frost giants, but this one was a girl, and she had a very different background, so she didn't have the stories with her mother, with the mother that Loki did, the cherished stories about who taught you magic. So she says that someone taught you good magic, and it didn't even. She doesn't know who that is because it wasn't. She didn't have the experience with Frigga. Yeah.
Frigga, yeah.
So that was interesting. It was also interesting to see them play to their particular strengths. So Loki has a lot more training, but he still doesn't know how to enchant people, or so he's really, really interested. He keeps asking her, "How do you do this? How do you do this?" But so even though she's not as trained, maybe she didn't have as nice of a childhood as he did, which is it's just saying something because you know Loki, and Loki thinks that he had it the worst because he was in as favored as Thor, but he wasn't carted away as a child. So perspective is everything. So yeah, it's interesting how they play to their strengths when they try to get on the train. He does a shape shifting thing, and they had to use her mind control thing because he wanted to use more finesse is what he said. But it didn't get them on the train. They had to fall back on her mind reading thing. So they kind of worked together begrudgingly.
Right, begrudgingly. So I think that's definitely a very interesting part, and just kind of like the interplay between that, and just also reminds me. Also, Tom Hiddleston, the range. I mean, he was singing and singing like an Asgardian song, and had everyone in the audience compelled and like at the edge of their seat, and it was like totally kind of out of character. We haven't seen that yet in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where he's very engaging in that way. So I just found the whole experience again on the train. It wasn't just like mischievous tricks. Yeah. Like they were able to get on the train, and she was like, "That was it." And it's like, "Yeah, so that was it." And so it was kind of convenient for them to be on the train, but sometimes it was kind of like that kind of shock back and forth. And also there were a couple of big reveals that I remember when they were on the train. One was the fact that they're playing Loki's sexuality as kind of very fluid. It was kind of like a throwaway line in some ways, but in other ways, they've been heard online about the fact that his sexuality was very fluid, and he said, I had been with women and men. So that was very interesting in a lot of regards, and I hope that they kind of explore that a little bit more. And then the other one was about, and it goes back to the beginning of the episode where Sylvie was in the mind of the captured Minute Woman, and so she was basically in her memories, and basically just kind of explore. I think they were having a margarita at the time, and they were like kind of, and then she was kind of bringing up all these like, okay, where's the Time Various Authority? How do you break into through their doors and stuff like that? And she was just like, what's going on here? And then the audience is like kind of like, what's going on here? It's like, it's kind of a happy type of time. They just spent like almost like two women spending time with each other, and you thought that it was kind of like talking about Sylvie's past, but it's not. It's actually talking about the woman's past that she was mind controlling. So that little twist there was very interesting in a lot of regards as well. And then the big twist was about how she was almost like against her will became part of the Time Variance story. I found that fascinating, in that and also kind of reaffirms our theory from the previous week's episode about how the Time Variance Authority is kind of a little bit shady. So a little bit more kind of intrigue in that regard.
Yeah. Yes, someone in chat on YouTube asked to see our T-shirts. I'm not sure if you're wearing a graphic tee, but it's just a T-shirt of Miles Morales. Got it from the Marvel store, so that's what my T-shirt is. Yeah, has on it. I'm not sure if you're wearing a graphic tee as well. He said, can you show the full design of the T-shirt you're wearing now? Okay, so that's what that's what they're asking for. Anyway, yes. Wow. We have another confirmed LGBTQ character within the Marvel Universe, but this is a more of a main character, or main characters rather. I think in Endgame, one of the Russo brothers played a character who's gay, but this is the first time we've gotten like a villain or a superhero who's confirmed to be LGBTQ, which is great. Maybe that's why they pushed Loki back to Pride Month instead of following it right after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because they wanted to do it during Pride Month. So that's pretty cool.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other revelation in this, as you said, is that the TVA isn't above board, which is what we speculated 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
I mean, this is
Right.
there's all this dogma, and Loki's always questioning the dogma. And and last week he's like, "Do you even believe all this?" And he said, and Owen Wilson is saying, "Well, yeah. What if you start questioning all anything? Existence is chaos, right?" But now we
Hmm.
know that now we know that they are nefarious in some way because they've wiped all the memories of their entire staff and everyone who's working for the TVA is a variant. Well, almost everyone. I think Renslayer, the judge. I don't think she's a variant because, like I said, she's a
Hmm.
character that shows up associated with now I'm blanking on his name.
Kang the
Kang the
Conqueror.
Conqueror. Yeah,
Yep.
she's associated with Kang, and Kang is showing up in Quantumania. So I think
Mhm.
she is the only one who is at the TVA who isn't a a variant. And it also begs a question about a lot of different things. So like Owen Wilson's character Mobius, he's always drinking Josta Cola, which is I think a thing from the '90s, and he's fascinated with jet skis, right?
Hmm.
Which so I'm thinking now maybe he was plucked from the '90s, and this is just
Mm.
remnants in the back of his head where he's remembering his like he's anchored to these things because just I don't think they don't make it anymore the Josta Cola anymore.
Hmm.
But he's a time traveler, so he can pull I don't know a soda without creating too much of a branch or whatever. So that's how he's still drinking that cola from that era. So it's interesting. I don't as we discussed last week the the timekeepers or
Hmm.
they were created in the comics at the end of time, and they're
Hmm.
mostly interested in just maintaining the timeline, so they get created at the end of time, which
Right.
I don't know if they're gonna go into that complexity here or because they tend to try to keep things simple. The big bad might just be Renslayer, or the big bad might be Kang, and Renslayer is just the person who's in front of the.
Hmm.
So he's trying to control the timeline. So it will be interesting to see where things land next week because they have to. I think this episode is like followed where Loki and Sylvie went after the portal. Next
Hmm.
episode, I think we're going to see what happened with Owen Wilson and all of the TVA after Sylvie created all those branches, right? Because
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
don't, as we said last week, I don't think they have enough manpower to actually clip all those branches, and it was supposed to keep them busy so she could go kill the timekeepers, right? So
Hmm.
it should be interesting to see where they go next week. Also, we have to also at the end of this episode, it seems like they're going to die, but of course they're not going to die because it's only the third episode. Uh, um,
Right.
so I don't know how they're going to be saved. One of the theories that's bouncing around on the internet is that when Loki in the first episode was in that desk and he saw all those Infinity Stones, he kind of cuffed a the Time Stone.
Mm.
If you remember when the building was about to fall on him, he it went back. Now that could be him using his magic to throw it back, or it could be him rewinding time.
Ah,
So it's possible that he can rewind the explosion of the ship that they were going to use as a power source to get off of the
that's
planet.
interesting.
And Loki being the way the Loki being Loki, it's not like he's going to put all his cards on the table to Sylvie in the first place. It's not going to say, "Oh,
Hmm.
I have the time stone, so that's how we can get out of this."
Right. Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I think that um, yeah, it would be very interesting because at the very end, I mean, the rocket ship did explode.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not, I mean, they're going to pull that Infinity Stone out, or and I think the device that they had, they couldn't even
Right, right, right. they were looking. So the original plan was, okay, this thing is out of power. I mean, they went through several iterations. Look, they were fighting in the hallway, trying to suss out whether or not they're going to be enemies or work together. And then Renslayer shows up. And she basically says she's going to kill both of them. So they have to get away. And your video just froze for some reason. Let me disconnect and reconnect your video. For some reason it you have this one expression on your face. Sorry for people who are watching a stream. We're gonna go away for less than a minute. I want to get Colin's video feedback. All right, we are back. Sorry about that. Whoever's watching the stream, anyone's watching the stream, because we're streaming live on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. So I don't know. I'm not watching all the chats. So sorry about that, guys. So yeah, they and then they get away, or they escape. He hides the pad, but the pad's out of power. So they were going to try to find a power source. So they thought about the arc. They're thrown off the plane. They're thrown off the train, and the arc is the pad is broken. So their last plan is to try to just board the arc and make sure it doesn't get destroyed.
Right.
Which doesn't work out either. and that's when we get that one shot, that continuous shot that was so cool to watch, that they did in one. I mean, it probably wasn't one take, but it looked like one take, so that's why it's pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know. After TVA is dealing with all these branches that Sylvie created, I doubt they're like top of their mind is like running after them. They have a lot of mess to deal with. So I guess the TVA could come and save them, but they're in an apocalypse. Like we already established from the last episode that the TVA can't recognize variations at apocalypse.
Right.
So I'm not sure how they get out of this unless they get out of it themselves. And the only thing that I can think of, and like I said, this is a theory floating around the internet, is that he'll use the time stone, or he has the time stone, because there's nowhere else, no other way to get off of the moon.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting though, because in the trailers, in the Loki trailers, way back when they first came out, was they were speculating that it was Black Widow who in front of the Avengers Tower. So I wonder if the next episode is going to present that. But clearly, some on the internet have said that that's not actually Black